Queensland wet tropics are an incredibly biodiverse area in far north Queensland and Australia. It's one of Australia's only tropical areas and home to a lot of endemic species and species that are incredibly rare everywhere else in the world. Specifically, it's home to a very wide array of nocturnal lepidopterans, which are moths. The area is unfortunately a hotspot for deforestation because of the fertile land for agriculture and a lot of valuable timber trees in the area. Studies have found that most moths prefer dense vegetation with canopy cover where they can travel around and find the different foods that they eat. So we hypothesize that our mature forest will have the highest species richness and the highest number of moths, with the regrowth sites having second most, with 2016, the more recent regrowth sites, having less than 2011 regrowth sites. Then from there, we expect the paddocks to have the smallest number of moths and the smallest species diversity. Now it's important to see how we did this. First, we go on Google Earth Pro and select our points. You can see the different types of locations here, where we'll collect our data. Then we get in the GPS, so when we're out in the forest, we can find our spots.
After setting up our collection sites, we then need to gather our gear to go into the field. Our gear consists of a euthanizing jar, which is toilet paper and some acetone. The acetone helps put the moths to sleep. We then have a collection jar, where we put our specimens in. We then need to gather our supplies for our light trap, which consists of a bed sheet, a rope, and a spotlight.
We would usually arrive at our collection site at around 6:45 p.m. and then have our traps ready by 7:15 p.m. We would tie a rope between two trees, or in the case of being the paddock, between two star pickets. We would then throw a bed sheet over this rope. We would set our lights up from around 7:15 p.m. to around 8:15 p.m. During our data collection, when a moth would land on our sheet, we would scoop them up in the euthanizing jar, and then after they were incapacitated, transfer them to our collection jar for later identification at the center.
Hi, this is how we do our data collection. First, we start by pinning and drawing out our moth specimens so that their wings are spread and we can see details in them. Next, we use our textual resources to see if we can find the species and genus. Otherwise, we'd use an online resource. But once we find their species and genus, we input them in our data sheet and use those statistics to figure out their variation. So we found that moths are really significant markers for ecosystem health and important pollinators. We found that they're pollinating twice as much as bees because they're working morning and night. We also found that the mature forest and regrowth forest had moth species diversity that's very comparable to each other, and this indicates that the regrowth sites are effectively restoring ecosystem health and are essentially working. The lack of statistically significant differences in species numbers, but the clearly variable population compositions indicates that there may likely be preferences in locations between species. For example, we found that the paddock had unusually larger compositions of some species, and this is likely the result of Australia's history of agricultural deforestation and over time forcing these new species to adapt to these environments to sustain themselves without sufficient resources or vegetation. So from this, the main takeaway should be that supporting restoration projects and including natural plant growth in your property is crucial for the health of the planet, moths, and even cows.